Hey, it's John, and in this video we're going to dive into how we can leverage Monday.com to talk and plan our risk management framework. Here what we have is statuses of controls that our organization has selected, along with the validation status. Now we're able to look into over 1,000 controls at scale as this loads, and we're able to make decisions about the information that our company needs to make the right decisions about securing our software as a service, our enterprise, our business, and our customers' data. So what we have here are controls that are separated by the importance and over here, the status. Here's the best part about using Monday.com to improve your risk management framework is we can start to dive into that failed control and understand the background, the components, the identity access management that is tied to the control, right? Integrating frameworks is about developing structures that function seamlessly, right? An excellent example of the framework is your door with hinges. The door opens seamlessly, and when there's a problem, you get that feedback. It's more difficult. It doesn't close the right way. It makes a noise. So let's dive into this control real quick. Okay, we're not going to dive into this control on this machine, but we can come down here. We can look at our failed controls across the entire enterprise. We see there's 1,100 other controls that have not been started yet. So let's dive into this. And what we can see here is we have failed controls in two different groups. One is our continuous monitoring group. Now, when you're doing an audit, when you're working with anything that has to do with audit, guiding an auditor to where your organization knows there's a failed control can help improve your experience with the auditor and help them identify what your business is lacking in, right? The auditor will do the rest of their work as well, but showing them where you have already pre-assessed that there's a failed control can help expedite the audit. Now, what we've got here is the short number, right? CA7. We can look across the whole risk management framework and find where CA7 falls as a secondary control or a primary control. And we have a description of this control, right? It tells us what the control does for the business, right? Here, what we have are the discussion questions about the control. And I understand this is a little visually overwhelming right now, but we can export this to Slack or Teams or a PDF. And what we have here are the secondary controls that our organization needs to consider in this control. There's 49, 50, 51 secondary controls for your continuous monitoring program. Now, we can create files and share them with each other. We can also look in and understand what these controls are. We see that we have them across the whole array of controls that we can select from. So this is a really important control for our organization to make the right decisions on. That's why this one has been deemed critical priority. We see it selected. We see the last person working on the control and when it was updated. We can define what the requirements, the estimate, the design, the implementation. We can define our project timeline. We can assign a team to be responsible for doing that work. We can also understand what other teams we've assigned. So here on this one control, we've included systems architecture, our legal advocacy, vulnerability, the VAM, right? We have included so much of the enterprise, and we have to understand who is internal, who is external, who's a third party, who's involved with the responsibility, which is different than accountability or who's consulted or informed. We can define our maintenance plan, imperative for choosing security controls, because what doesn't get maintained will become dilapidated. We can establish our review date. We have a unique item ID for the control group, which lets us search across this. As we export the data, it gives us tracking at a high level. And we can manage our exceptions to the controls and understand the exception group, right? Which identity access management group is having an exception and where that impacts our organization. So the exceptions we've submitted here impact the securely provision, the oversee and govern, and the securely provision group. So we have three different groups that have been submitted for an exception to the control for this duration. We see the impacts to the process as critical. That's why this control was approved, even though this is a critical control. we understand that these people needed access. Now, we want to build a RACI chart. Who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, who's informed. So when we build this out, right, we can start to use identity access management by using the NICE framework, right? And we can understand, again, who in that cybersecurity framework is responsible. So in this demonstration here, we have the oversee and govern, we have security provisioning, we have operate and maintain. Different parts of our enterprise organization are now responsible for this. We have the same thing for accountability. We can look at a high level who's accountable, collect and operate, security provision. We can also do who's consulted, right? We see the same frameworks that are involved, right? We can come in here too, and we can add more people to consult with. So this menu we'll click on, it'll open up another box, and we can search, or we can just click in and add. Maybe we want our data administration team to be on this, right? Leveraging identity access management. It's not as hard as one thinks, right? It is accessible, but you have to establish your organization. You have to follow standards. You have to have procedures. You have to have documentation, or your organization will not be able to set clear and concise objectives for what needs to be done. We've added data administrators to this board, so we've added somebody else to be consulted for this control that has been failed, that's critical to the organization and has exceptions, right? We need to increase our logging, monitoring, and alerting. And we can come in and we can start to tune how the organization will generate telemetry for our intrusion and detection and monitoring programs, systems, and appliances. So here we can go ahead and start to set what is it the organization is looking for, what the systems and sensor grids will be configured to do, how they will log, monitor, and alert based on the detection, what signals, the components, the span, and the metrics that the teams will use to talk about these components. So if you're enjoying how to build an information security program for your cloud service provider or your SaaS, right, like, follow along and share for more.